Hey everybody, welcome back into Bayou Time. Harry McCullough here. We spent a little time before the last session talking about redistricting, so we spent a little time after the session with Representative Joe Orgeron, District 54. Thanks so much for being with us. We spent a little time in Grand Isle this week, so
we did.
Good to see you down there. And we talked the preview, so we talked a little bit about what's going on. So great to see Grand Isle back. I know it's not back.
No.
In fact, physically, you're still doing some work down there.
I am.
But it was good to see people on the island and consider where we were 10 months ago.
All the people with the carts and the tents,
Yeah.
and it's good for the economic prosperity.
Right.
This soon after Hurricane Ida, to see people back and enjoying themselves on the beach, and looking forward to. Making the best out of this year, the best that we can,
Sure.
and then subsequently, the years to come,
Right.
the investment that we see happening.
Yeah, no doubt. So look, the last thing we were talking about, you were on a committee for the redistricting, and that was the majority-minority districting.
Right.
Actually, not in majority black districts. So you guys came together, you had a map, it was voted vetoed, then overrode. Then
Right.
the judge got involved. Judge Dick got involved, and then eventually the Supreme Court just said we're going to go with what y'all did originally.
We had seen, or I had seen, the news reports of other states that had issues with their maps, or challenges, I guess would be the best way to see it. And it seemed like the consensus would be that as it moved up in the courts, the idea was whatever your state legislature came out with, let's go with that, because everybody was against the time pressure. And here in Louisiana, despite the midterm elections being November 8th, our qualifying, or where Steve Scalise and Gary Graves and Julia Letlow, where they live and what district they could actually run for, that has to be decided before qualifying of July 20th, 21st, 22nd. And the Secretary of State needs about a month, or 28 days prior. So basically all of this needed to be settled before July 1st. And I believe that's why the Supreme Court ultimately said what they said in other precedents, is let's just go with what the legislature has put out for the qualifying.
You'd think, are any of these states ever going to challenge the Voting Rights Act from that? Would there be a lawsuit on the other side if that would have gone through?
I don't know if they would have challenged it, but I know that if rulings were done in a certain way that really didn't, if a ruling was done that was not in the spirit of the original legislative intent of the act, then there may be
Sure.
a ruling that kind of pulls it back a little bit.
Yeah.
That would be about all I could see happening.
Yeah, that was real interesting. So you had a very busy time in the legislature. You got some legislation pulled through, and
Yep.
I know some things you're really proud of, particularly the Water Safety Act.
Yes. I was approached by a young couple who had lost a son in a pool accident, in a drowning accident, and they asked me to run a bill that they had actually asked my predecessor, Reggie Bagala, to start up. And obviously they didn't get that done. So this year I took that water safety instruction mandate up, that bill, and we actually got it all the way through, and it's now signed by the governor, and that'll be in K through 12, various parish school boards will be able to decide on their own where to put in this small amount of water safety instruction.
Yeah, it's so good. And the Blue Boot Rodeo is, by the way, this weekend down in
Correct.
Grand Isle.
Same
it's
couple.
good. You see a bunch of the little rings that are all around Grand Isle, so it's great to see that.
And that has been attributed
Great.
to saving some lives from some people that go too close to the rocks and have trouble. and
Right,
stuff
but
like that.
look, when you talk about water safety, every highway we drive on almost everyone has water on the sides.
That's
And
right.
that was always a big part, is to make sure that you can get out of a car. If you fall into somewhere, you can get yourself out. So just even a little training, I'm sure, could help out.
Some of the charity work that I had done, I was involved, or I'm still involved with the Fushall Oilmans, and every year we had at least one entity that would try to get a grant explicitly to train grade school kids on that don't know how to swim. And the lady that would come every year and request a grant would always say, you know, God forbid a school bus goes into the bay or anything like that. These kids in our region, our culture, our community along the coast, they need to know how to swim.
Oh, it really is. Let's say look, that's one of the reasons our highways aren't so straight. We always are going around a bayou or a canal or a gulf or something. So it's always real important. So what else? Anything else did you want to catch real quick?
The Oyster Task Force. I also had a bill that due to the changing in the oyster industry, some of the oyster growers and dealers association approached me asking for some changes in the makeup of the people that they're able to put on a wildlife and fisheries board that manages the oyster industry in Louisiana.
Yeah.
So
oyster leases are very popular. I mean, controversial in some aspects too, right?
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
length now.
And one of the things that we don't have I believe in the Houma Terrebonne or the Terrebonne Parish, Lafourche Parish area, or between us, is what they call a public seeding ground, something that the public can go and take oysters from.
Really exciting times. I don't know, with our new president and everybody's worried about the oil and gas industry, but there is some optimism about green energies and blue energies that might be coming in. The new offshore wind, looks like we're going to have a wind field out of the Gulf of Mexico, but there's a federal wind field and there's a state wind field. So you guys are trying to get in front of the state side, right?
Correct. During the course of this past legislative session, Representative Jerome Z. Zarang authored a bill and asked me to co-author it. And basically, it's just to open up the possibility for offshore wind farm leases in Louisiana waters. In most of the areas around the United States, or at least in Rhode Island, where the first one was done, they found that it was a lot easier to do it in state waters than trying to do it in the federal waters further than 3 miles off. So here in Louisiana, we've actually had a few developers who are already cognizant of the fact that most of the equipment that was used to build the one in Rhode Island, the jackets were fabricated here. Some of the vessels were done here. They basically know that the supply chain that they need is basically the supply chain, and the talent comes from Louisiana. So therefore, doing one in Louisiana's backyard would be probably very cost effective. So getting the state statute right to be able to be accommodating for any developers that want to come into offshore wind was step number one, and that we at least got that done this session.
And I was asking it seems to me that the closer to the land, or closer to where you're sending the power, would be even more advantageous for a company like that. But you said there's some advantages to being offshore as well.
Well, further offshore, you could have better winds. In the Gulf of Mexico, actually, the further you move towards the west, the only place that the federal government's looking at leasing basically starts at Grand Isle, the Grand Isle blocks, and then going westward. So not even the West Delta area, nothing on the other side of the Mississippi River.
Or because of shipping?
Because of the wind. That's primarily, the winds get stronger as you go all the way down. Some of the best winds are in Brownsville, Corpus Christi, and coming up on the east side. But another factor in that makes the Gulf of Mexico unique is that, different than the other places where they're considering offshore wind, is there they have in the East Coast, they have population right on the coast, and here in the Gulf Coast, there's not really a big population center on the coast apart from Grand Isle. But apart from that, we have very low energy costs, And therefore, there's a lot of the developers that are coming and talking about offshore wind are not only talking about maybe cables to pump electrons or electricity back to the beach, but possibly converting that electricity offshore to hydrogen through electrolysis, splitting the water molecules. And then you got to get a way to get the hydrogen back to the beach, and we have copious amounts of pipelines.
Right.
So that they're looking at it as...
So they can use them as both, for both?
Yes. Okay. Actually, you could commingle hydrogen with the natural gas that already comes.
Can you do that with electricity, electrons too?
Not in pipelines,
right,
but
right,
you could put
alongside of it, the right of way.
But converting the wind energy into what you could call molecular energy in the form of creating hydrogen, and then that's a gas, and putting it into the pipeline is a way to get that energy back to the beach. And then you're not messing with siting and permitting and estuarial impacts and wetlands. You're basically using existing infrastructure that Louisiana has to get that energy back to the beach.
And it's shallower here, right? And a lot of those shelves would drop off a lot more.
Correct.
I thought it was interesting. You said one of the big drawbacks to being on population centers was they didn't like seeing it out there. Not an issue for us. Not
an issue for us. I get that all the time. It's like, are you worried about having infrastructure right off the coast? The last call I had, I was actually in Grand Isle looking, and I'm staring at like 40 different platforms right now. I don't think it's a problem for us to have stuff offshore.
I think we can do that.
Well, the point is that anytime you put yellow steel jackets in the water for whether it's for oil or gas or for offshore wind, it's going to take boats to get there. It's going to take people to do blasting and painting and maintenance and all sorts of things. And that's the job base of South Louisiana. Right. And that's why I saw it play so well that it doesn't matter whether they pumping electrons into the grid, creating hydrogen and pipelining it back to the beach, or producing oil and gas. It's still lots of quality Louisiana jobs.
Right. Oh, without a doubt. Can you fish next to them?
And you can. That's actually in a lot of the scoping discussions. There's always somebody from the charter fishermen group that's pretty much as long as you give us more structure in the Gulf that we could fish and that creates habitat,
that would be
we're going to be all
seeing a big old propeller spinning up above.
Well, they're doing it off of Block Island. They're allowing there's charter fishermen who've done ads that say, it used to be hit and miss, but now I got a place that I could always go and get people on fish.
Oh no, that's great. That's great to hear, and like I say, all the way around, that could be a great thing. And look, I think you just showed. I should have said Dr. Joe Orgeron, of course. Doctor of physics from the University of Texas. So we appreciate your background, and that helps out a lot when we're dividing electrons. And gas,
splitting them.
So. That comes in handy occasionally, right?
It does help. It helps. It helped in the oil and gas industry when I was working there, and dealt with a lot of engineers that would try to, every once in a while say, well, we don't want to get into the technical stuff, but
we don't want to go over your head.
Right.
Like, you can
give it a shot, man. Let's try. Let's see where it goes.
Anyway. I don't know if you did any construction management in your career, but LA1 is broken ground, and they're about to connect the 4-lane in Golden Meadow all the way to the bridge in Leesville.
Correct.
Leeville.
And we Friday before last, we had the groundbreaking ceremony for that last segment. Long time in the making to get that done. Great help from Tanner McGee and Norby Chabert, Senator Chabert, and Z. I mean, everybody involved. Of course, our Washington delegation helped us get the infra grant that was needed with the governor's match. So the state of Louisiana. I mean, it's really a conglomeration of industry. The LA1 coalition, all the work that was done. So it's not just one infrastructure project sourced from one or paid for by one method or mechanism. It's really a conglomeration to get that project done, and it's really going to benefit South Louisiana and our energy industry. The wind farm industry that we spoke about would be, it'll help that, and it's helping with a lot of the coastal restoration projects as well.
Well, and all this had to be put in the wheels had to be in motion beforehand, but we're going trying to get Saudi Arabia to open up a little more. I think they're understanding how important the energy sector for Louisiana and the rest of this country is too. So yeah, we need to have a better way to get down there.
Absolutely.
For sure.
During the legislative session, there were several resolutions. I had one, and I think Senator Sharon Hewitt had one that was just basically petitioning the governor and the federal government to reopen the offshore leases, put it back on track. And I believe on Friday, right before the 4th of July, they kind of slipped that in the federal government noted the news dump on Friday at 4 p.m. that they will have lease sales, and basically as many as 10, which is 2 per year for 5 years, but as few as 0. So it's kind of like, well, that's at least it's something. At least we were made the promise that they may occur.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, no,
good.
that'd
But
be
we
great.
need them. We need them.
We
Absolutely.
certainly need them. We need refineries. We need all of that. We don't need to close them down for sure. So hey, let's talk about Grand Isle and just in general. And obviously for us down the road, it's going to be a great 27 should be the completion date.
Correct. For the road.
For the road to get
Right.
there. And obviously it'd help you get to Grand Isle. We saw each other down in Grand Isle this week, but so nice to have everybody back on the beach. But they're doing a lot more stuff there. There's rocks everywhere. There's a lot of rehabilitation.
Right. There's of course the Hurricane Ida took a hit on the burrito levee, the dune levee that's between the beach, between the Gulf Beach and the camps. I've actually had meetings with CPRA, Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, and they shared the plan that the Army Corps of Engineers has, and what they're doing. What we saw happening this weekend was barges of rocks moving across in front of Grand Isle, and they're basically bringing them all the way to the far western end, where across from Bridgeside Marina on the beach, there were 5 segmented jetties, just like that covers the rest of the island, all the way on that far west end. And now they're going to be teeing up the westernmost jetty with the Barataria or Caminata Pass, so that they're just filling in all those rocks in there to make a solid strip of rocks to better protect it. And then I think the second phase will be to work in the Caminata Pass to protect the Chanière area, the not the Grand Isle side of the bridge, but the other side. To protect that area. They're going to be putting segmented jetty sections there. And then the third phase will be to do a beach renourishment and basically put sand back over all parts, or replace the parts of the burrito with another type of mechanism underneath the dune, and then cover it all back with sand.
Which we've seen that if we have the right rocks and in the right spots, it'll regenerate a lot of that itself. Not obviously not the burrito, but
right.
From if you go to Grand Isle, when you come right across, there's no beach compared to what's on the left side. And it used to be almost reversed back 20 years ago.
Correct.
Those rocks have made a difference.
Absolutely. And the problem that they've noticed with the 5 segmented rocks right whenever you get onto Grand Isle was that all the way on the western end, that it was kind of eroding the jetties that make the Caminata Pass, that the water was whipping around there, and that's why they're teeing them off to allow more sand to just fill in and fill up on that area.
Yeah, it's amazing how nature does that.
Right. CPRH is finishing a project to Grand Isle's neighbor to the east, Grand Terre, which they had done rock fortification around the fort, and most of the island, a good fraction of the island on the backside, and done a dune building. And Hurricane Ida actually took that dune and actually spread it over Grand Terre, and actually gave Grand Terre more tear, or more land, and then they subsequently went back and basically redid the dune. So now they're completing that part.
Oh, good. Yeah. Man, exciting time down there. And we appreciate your time for sure, Joe.
Thank you, Harry.
All right.
Appreciate yours.
We'll be right back with more Bite Time right after this.